Database searching can be quite time consuming, and sometimes it can feel a bit hit and miss. Sometimes you can get too many or too few results. And this tutorial is very much designed to help you to build your search. Now, what's really worth bearing in mind is that all databases look slightly different the one from the other, but the principles of building a database are the same. And this is what, once you know the principles, you'll be able to search on any database, even if it's less familiar to you. So what we need to do is we need to consider 3 relatively easy steps to take in order to build a search. My first task is to break down my research question into its key components. And for my topic, which was how does innovation in new technology impact on social inclusion? The key concepts are clearly the nouns in that particular case. And you don't need to worry about words like evaluate or compare or impact or anything like that when you're starting to build your search. The second step is to build a search by expanding my search terms. So to do this, I need to think about alternative search terms. It's good practice to do this because a single concept might be referred to in several different ways in academic literature. So let's take an example. A related term for innovation could be entrepreneurship or enterprise. And there are also some alternative terms that could relate to terms like social innovation. So we might have new technology, emergent technology, digital technology. So it's worth bearing in mind what other terms you can use in order to start opening up the possibilities of having more hits in your search. For example, for social inclusion, you could have involvement, participation, fairness, engagement. However, it's also useful to think of related terms which might be slightly different. For example, if you do when we did an earlier library search, we found that some of the information wasn't only about social inclusion, it was about social exclusion. So you might have to think of an extra category where you think about things like exclusion or marginalization, not only inclusion, in order to capture the debate in the literature about those things. Now, the third step we need to do is, my third step is to build a search by connecting my search terms. Now, you can do a lot of individual searches, but this will take you an awfully long time, a hell of a lot of time. So to save time, you can group together your search, you can group together your terms to create composite searches by using Boolean logic, which I'll describe shortly. But what Boolean logic means is you use 3 short words, and, or, and not, in order to do the search and to combine your searches. So, based on my key terms and the relative terms I've chosen, my search looks like this. I have my 3 linked concepts. I have innovation, new technology, social inclusion, but I have also listed related terms for each key concept to broaden my search. So what I've done is I've created a string search by stitching together concepts and terms. And don't forget that when you're doing a live search, you might have to constantly adjust your search. You might have to find new sources, new angles, remove terms, add terms. That's all in the game. It's not an exact science. That's part of the fun and part of the frustration. So you need to play around with it a bit.
Just want just a quick thing, if you get really good at this as well, this is obviously really good for specialist databases, wide ranges, also good things like Google, right? And Instagram and Twitter, and it helps you. Most of the modern world now is based on databases, whether that's images or text. Most things will have a Boolean logic underneath and particular characters you can use. Pretty much everything does this, from Linux to Twitter. So just, if you get good at this, it's some people call it like your Google foo, like your kind of, your kind of martial arts skills in searching, but yeah.
Really exactly. it sort of makes you hardwired. You know, the irony is that if you're buying something on Amazon, you know, it's not that dissimilar to some of these things here. It won't be alien to any of us at this point, but it's picking up the technique in order to use the system. So what I'm doing is I'm using and to combine each separate concept, innovation, new technology, and social inclusion. And I want to ensure that all my results combine all the main concepts of my topic. So I'm using or for related terms, new technology, emerging technology, digital technology, and this means that my database results will contain one or more of the related terms. If I don't use or, the database will assume that I want my search to combine all of these terms, and I would come up with 0 results. No single academic article or newspaper article will combine all of those 10 terms. And to just make that a little bit more clearer, hopefully, why don't we have a little look now at Boolean logic? So, in Boolean logic, the words and, or, and not are used to combine our search terms, and they're known as Boolean operators. These diagrams show how each of them works, and they are fairly straightforward. So in each case, the blue color is showing the distribution of our search results. So using and to combine different concepts, technology and inclusion, will result in a smaller set of results, but it will match our topic more closely because it's those two things combined. Using or, for example, for inclusion or participation, will widen the results. You will use or synonyms for related terms and you will get more results, not less results. And ironically, is less results, or is more results. And not will exclude certain terms for you. For example, we can say digital technology and not mobile phones. But I personally would say, think very carefully before using not, because you could unintentionally exclude relevant results. So that's my piece of advice in that regard.
I assume though it can also be quite useful if there's another term that's quite similar. So I don't know, it might be a company that's similar to the search term you were using, or vice versa. You know, it might be a generic term that's used by a company. So using things like, you know, if it's got the exact kind of spelling of it or the kind of specification using not can be really useful in that case, couldn't it? It's kind of, you're getting 900 results you don't need, and it's the 10.
Absolutely.
What those 900 results include, you can exclude it. So useful.
No, that's a very, very fair point. Absolutely. And now that we've kind of understood the Boolean principles, here are some more tips about how you can apply some techniques to help you even more with your searching. So before we do a database search, this is what I would recommend. And they will really help you to get the most out of your database. And this is how I've used them in this example. So what you will notice here is that I've actually used some techniques. For example, for innovation, I've used the asterisks in order to get the root of the word, in order to get multiple endings. So I have innovator, innovation, innovations in plural. With entrepreneurship, if I put entrepreneurial, or you can have entrepreneurial, entrepreneurship, entrepreneur, etc. Similarly, as we described earlier, new technology, emerging technology, these are really well-known phrases. We don't want to pick up every single result that includes in a text both new and technology. We want them to be combined as a phrase. So it's worth bearing those things in mind. So the use of the asterisks for alternative terms, etc. So there are 3 techniques here that I've just described. One of them is phrase searching. You use quotation marks for an exact phrase, Global South, for example. You use truncation, as I described already, in order to get more options there, including the plural. But you don't do it too soon. For example, you want English England, but you don't want Engels or engineer. So it's getting the right level of the root in order to find the result. And finally, the wild card. So what you do is you use a question mark in order to get alternate characters. So you get both woman and women by doing that. And also, if something is spelt in a different way, for example, in some cultures, British versus Irish, American, etc., the word organization might be spelt in a different way. If you put in a $sign, you get all those spellings, so you're not deprived of any of the spellings. And this is what our search looks like. We have done our 3 steps, we have followed the techniques, and this is what we come up with. So we have finally what our search looks like. We have our related concepts, and what I've done is I've put in brackets any of the related terms that are connected with or. If you don't put them in brackets, as I explain here, don't worry, because they will be put in brackets once you click on search on your database.
Just a quick thing here. So
sure,
millions of useful things here, but one of the things
sure.
I ask you to do is to give us an account of your research, right? Now, obviously, when we're doing field work, that involves, what technique you use, who you talk to. It's also true of literature reviews as well, right? So if you say we did a review of literature around social inclusion technology, often our question, great, where and what? One of the things you can do here is say, well, look, we use these terms, these specific terms. This is the kind of body we found. We changed it slightly and we found this, and we'll discuss this. It sets up the next person to be able to repeat what you've done and find similar terms. But also, yeah, to get us to evaluate how you've done it and why you've done it in that way. So it's not just a case of just whacking it in and using it. You've recorded this. This is a useful piece of information for you to review back on later on as well. What's the search terms I used for? So, yeah.
That's a really good point, because not only are you tracking your searches, you're tracking the way you're developing your thoughts in your research. So I think that that's a really good point. Absolutely. So we've got our search terms. And what I would suggest is, stop this video, have a look yourselves at the searches, try it out, add terms, remove terms, see what differences there are in the results. But we'll carry on at the moment with this PowerPoint in order for me to show you I've captured some things here. Sorry, Kit, were you going to ask something?
A little thing to add on that. Try it on Google as well. Try it on your phone. Try it on your home computer. Try it on Mac. Try it on the next time you have to order a burger, right? Next time you want to buy a pair of shoes, but you want the blue and you want them Nike, but not that Nike, right? Just get it into your kind of vocabulary a little bit. It makes things so much easier because you can directly go, I need something on this, and refine. Sorry, I don't need to interrupt.
No, that's a really good point, Keir. Absolutely, for sure.